Hi, so it's the 14th of April, and I've been in quarantine for over a month now. And in a way, that time really has gone very quickly. It feels like it's flown by. I look back and it seems like just a couple of days ago when I was out on the high street still and had barely any awareness of the virus and everything that was happening in the world, basically. And so I was walking around with a completely different version of reality to the one that I entertain and believe now. And yeah, I look back on that time and feel quite nostalgic, really, because I hadn't watched the news for 12 years, or really read much by the way of the newspapers. Every so often I would read maybe a headline if I was out in a cafe and the newspaper just happened to be there, but it was no more than a casual glance, and I wasn't really interested. It was more like kind of I don't know, just passing time, I guess, if I was bored waiting for somebody, or if I was supposed to be working and I needed an excuse to take a break, then maybe I would just look at the headlines for a moment or two, but then I quickly grow bored and realise that it really wasn't for me, and most of it was all just like scaremongering, angry making, and just stirring up trouble or complaining about stuff, and I didn't really like the energy of it, so I never really dived that deep. And if there was a big crisis going on or something, then I would have a vague awareness of it, because people would talk, and being around people, you hear things, but I wouldn't explore it on my own independently, and I would ask people not to tell me certain things if I found them too upsetting, or if they scared me. And so so my view of the world, like over 4 weeks ago, was very, very different to what it is now, and so even though this time in quarantine has felt in a way quite safe and insular and protected and detached from the real world, it's really easy when you're living in a small confined space and you're not leaving it at all, you're not going out at all. Like, I literally haven't been out at all. This morning was recently in our building, they decided to open up the roof so that residents could go and walk up there to stretch their legs. And it's not a big space at all, but it's it's a roof and it's sunlight and fresh air, and somewhere that's a tiny bit bigger than the space that I live in, and it's a point of difference. And I went up there for the first time today, just to check it out and to see, because I wasn't sure prior to this if I actually even wanted to go up there. I was a little apprehensive that I would be bumping into my neighbours, and then it would be too close a proximity, and it's different on the roof to on the street. On the street I could easily turn around and walk in the other direction and go somewhere else, whereas on the roof it's like, it's a small confined space. So I was apprehensive, and I didn't actually even know if I wanted to go up there. But I decided today, I was just, I was feeling really cooped up, and I have several injuries that mean that I can't actually do my inside exercise at the moment, which I incurred doing my inside exercise, so do beware. Trying to stay fit at home rather than the gym, and doing it on your own without instruction, for me it turns out that's actually quite lethal, and I ended up hurting myself quite seriously, to the extent where I really do need to go and see a doctor and go to a hospital. But I'm holding back on that for the moment, because I'm not sure if I'm allowed to, and I'm not sure what the protocol is, so I'm just checking in with my doctor and insurance company to see what they come back with. And then also there's the apprehension of going to a hospital and being in contact with lots of people if you have to sit in A&E, and that's just quite stressful. So do beware, folks, if you decide to exercise at home. Doing relatively innocent things like a gentle yoga stretch can backfire on you. I have no idea how, but it did for me. Anyway, so I went up on the roof today and stretched my legs, and that was really nice, just to have a little kind of potter around. and it was really, really warm and sunny, and it was the first contact really that I've had with the fact that, you know, we're deep into spring now and rapidly moving towards summer, and I feel like when we came into quarantine here, it was still pretty much the end of winter. And so yeah, so my kind of like whole awareness of time has been really strange. You know, you settle into your daily routine, and one day turns into the next, and there's not really much point of difference between them, because you're in the same space and you're not going out at all. And so yeah, most of the time I'm not even sure what day of the week it is, what day of the month. And I have to keep checking in to remind myself, because it's like, well, there's no difference at the moment between Monday and Thursday and Saturday, and they're all the same. They all mean the same thing to me. So yeah, and I guess the point that I'm trying to make is that it's really easy to become really detached from reality when you're not out in the world. So there's all this scary stuff going on at the moment, and you know, we're meant to be taking precautions. And yet, if we're not going outside, it can be really easy to just detach from that completely, and start feeling overly safe, I guess, and overly protected, and like feeling like, oh, but I could just walk outside right now and everything will be totally fine and unchanged, because I'm not really seeing it anymore. And I think it's because the collective energy has shifted, at least where I am. So at the beginning it was one of panic and fear and anxiety, and now it's really calm. Everybody is in this place of acceptance, and in a way I feel like we're sheep. We've been herded into our pens and told to behave, and the big bad wolf is out there patrolling the streets, and you know, we're too scared to leave our pens in case we go out there and get caught by the wolf. And who is the wolf? Is the wolf the virus, or is the wolf the police or the military or other people reporting us? I'm not quite sure. And maybe the wolf is all of those things, but there is a sense of like, better be good, better stay home, better do as I'm told, because otherwise I'll get told off. And there's that mixed in with the, and also if I go outside, then maybe I'll get sick, and then maybe that will be really serious, and maybe I'll die, and maybe if I go outside and I've got this thing and I don't know about it, and then I come into contact with someone else, then maybe I'll, you know, infect them, and then I'll have caused them harm. So there's all of these different complicated things surrounding the even leaving your space. And so, you know, you don't leave your space, you do as you're told, and you only go out if you have to get supplies. And I haven't obviously had to go out to get supplies, because it's not just me here, so someone else is doing that for me. I'm very fortunate in that respect. But I think it's made it so that I have less of a grasp on reality than he does, because he's constantly out there in it. So at the beginning he was really scared and he didn't want to go out at all, and he was really freaked out by the fact that everything was so different and so changed, and people were so fearful, including himself. And now I think he quite likes going out, because he gets restless, and he needs to have that contact with the world, even if that contact isn't necessarily that cheerful and that uplifting. And so going on the roof today, I guess, was my little way of having that contact with the world, even though, you know, it was still, well, this time I'm now 6 floors up if I'm on the roof, so, you know, it's still very ungrounding. But it was quite nice to see neighbours on different roofs going for walks on their roofs, and a guy on one of the roofs just leaning over the edge of the wall and reading a book. And so life does go on, and people are adapting and doing their stuff, just quietly. I guess what surprised me over the length of this time is that I thought people would become more connected, and that there would be more conversations going on from apartment to apartment and building to building between neighbours, and it hasn't really that hasn't really happened here at all. It was there was more unity at the beginning, I think, in the first week, when people were really scared, and really, like, when they looked out the window to do the clapping in the evening, it was like kind of comforting and soothing and traumatic at the same time, because it made it all so much more real, and we were feeling so isolated and scared that we just wanted connection with anybody and everybody. And now I think people have got used to it and they don't feel the need for that, and so there isn't so much of that going on. There's a bit, but for the most part there isn't. People have just gone back to their lives, and are carrying on in this new way of being. So it's kind of living in this baggy time, this void, this, I don't know, it's kind of, I'm starting to feel like the space that we're in right now is slightly dangerous almost, because at the beginning we had that big fear and we were like terrified, and it was huge and it was traumatic, and it totally and utterly changed our world in a way that, you know, the world will never go back to how it was before. We will never go back to how we were before. We will never recover from that big shift, you know, that huge ripping to our soul and our psyche. That tear will always be there now. The world will not go back to how it was before. We've been told that. We've been told that, you know, this virus is going to keep coming back every year. That's what some people are theorizing. And that perhaps we're going to have to wear masks every time we go out forever now. And, you know, who knows if these things are true or not. This is just people hypothesizing. But these are scary things to have to think about. So we're hiding away like sheep in our little spaces. And when we go out, we're muzzling ourselves. You know, like dogs. Like if we don't wear our muzzle, then we might do something wrong, and then that might be cause for us to be disciplined or put down. And so we wear our muzzles and we do as we're told, and we only walk from A to B and back to A again. And it's the closest B that there is from A, and you know, we're not allowed to deviate in between. And if we do and we get caught, then we'll get fined. And so we're fearful, and so we're doing what we're told, like sheep. And a part of me can't help but question if the faith and the trust that we are putting in our superiors and our elders and the people that are out there watching out for us and governing over us and ruling over us, and the people that we have elected or not to do this, if they are trustworthy people for us to be bestowing all of this power onto, because our life is in their hands at the moment. We're trusting that what they are telling us is true, and we're all, you know, respectful, and we care about each other, so we're all quarantining. But is this the whole truth, or is there more to it than that? I don't really know. I mean, there are theories. I won't go into them because this is meant to be me spreading a little light, and those theories certainly aren't very light. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know what to believe anymore. I know that there are many theories out there about all of this, about what it means, about the significance of it, about what we should expect in the future. About how long we're going to be in quarantine for, and there's too much conflicting information, so it's very hard to pick out what is true, and to know who to trust. Do we trust the newspapers, or do we trust social media, or do we trust some of the talks and interviews and documentaries that are being put out at the moment? It's really hard to know what information is good. Are the scientists telling the truth? Are the doctors telling the truth? Are the politicians telling the truth? Who the heck knows, really? You know, it's all very, very subjective, and some people's views are biased, and are coerced by other factors, and so I feel like in a way I am living in this really safe space at the moment. It's like the no time, the in-between time, the void, the gestation of like I'm in a womb space and I am protected. And as long as I don't leave this womb space, I am safe. Yet I cannot stay here forever, because all the time that I am in this womb space, I am growing bigger and bigger and bigger. And at some point, I will have to leave and come out. Otherwise, I will destroy my host. And right now, we're in a womb space. And okay, we're not necessarily getting bigger and bigger, but I think we are spiritually. I think we are growing as people. We're doing a lot of thinking, a lot of introspection, a lot of self-healing and self-repair and self-analysis and all of that stuff in our spaces, individual spaces. And we are reformulating how we wish to live in the world and what we would like to achieve and how we would like to live in the future. And so we're growing. And at some point we're not going to fit in this space anymore. And I wonder what lies beyond right now, because right now is kind of comfortable and new and a bit exciting and challenging in a good way. And it's also really easy to bury our heads in the sand and just read all day or watch TV all day. Or do yoga all day or whatever, but just completely dissociate from the reality of it all and just, you know, go into our own little shiny bubble and make nice. And I'm not saying that that's a bad thing. I think going into our shiny bubble and making nice is very good for ourselves, for our own self-worth, self-esteem and self-love and everything, and it's necessary work, and I encourage people to do that. But it's really easy to lose touch with what's going on outside at the same time. And then do we miss something? Does something get by us? And do we forfeit the chance to stand up and say, no, that's not right. I'm not happy about that. I don't agree with that. And I do not give you permission to make those decisions about my life for me without me having informed consent. And that's what I worry about, is that how do we tread this space that we're in right now? How do we walk through it and get the most out of it and stay safe and stay sane and stay emotionally healthy, which is really, really important right now. And also make sure that in doing that, we're not being taken advantage of. And in an ideal world with, you know, the perfect government, perfect rulers, the people out there with the money and the power, if they were all like lovely, beautiful people who really, really cared about all of us, and we were more important to them than money or power, then it would be fine, and you know, we'd be safe doing that. But are they those people, and are we safe doing that? And that's the question that I keep coming back to, is how do I walk that line between the two? How do I stay informed? How do I keep having a voice? How do I matter and count out there in the world in terms of my own personal rights and the rights of all of my brothers and sisters? And how do I also stay true to myself and help and protect myself by nurturing my little golden bubble of a space and not freaking myself out with all of the news and all of the reality and all of the theories. And it's a hard one because, you know, I'll be honest with you, I've had nightmares almost every single night since this started, since the beginning of quarantine. Multiple nightmares each night. And I think it's you know, even though I might feel relatively fine during the daytime, then I go to sleep and I have nightmares, and so there's obviously a lot of processing being done. And every time when I look at the news via the various sources that I choose to watch and to get my news from, it triggers me. And I get anxious and I get fearful and I get desperate and desolate and hopeless. And at times I feel suicidal. I feel like I don't want to be a part of the world now any longer. The world that I thought I knew, the world that I thought I lived in, that was hard enough. There were enough problems then that I was dealing with. And then now, with this on top, it's just, it feels huge and overwhelming. And so there's only so much of that I can handle. And then on the days when I don't check in with the news and I live in my little shiny bubble, then I feel great and I'm really happy and I'm perfectly fine and I'm content and I feel productive and proactive and on target. So it's confusing, really confusing. And I think that a lot of us are trying to figure out this balance between how much real can we take right now and how much real do we need to take right now. And I don't think anyone knows the answer. But I think it's important to keep trying personally and independently to figure that out for ourselves, so that when we do finally emerge from this space where we are now, this no space, this void, this womb, the world that we re-enter is the world of our choice, or as much our choice as is possible, and not a world that is dictated to us. So yeah, those are my kind of thoughts on things right now, and I hope that's given you food for thought as well. I welcome your comments and your feedback, and if you're interested in talking to me further about this or about any of your feelings, then do get in touch. Okay, bye.